Hello, and welcome to our discussion on leadership and management development and how it's going to benefit your company. In today's competitive business environment, it is important to remain high-flying and looking forward. We are the Eagle Group, and we're going to create a plan that's going to help your business stay competitive. Here are our group members.
I'm Matt.
I'm Dan.
I'm Nahum.
And I'm David. And together we're going to empower and generate leadership education in your company.
On the agenda for today, we're going to discuss the difference between leadership and management and why leadership development and management development is important for your organization. We're going to discuss two options for leadership development, and we're also going to provide you with recommendations for your organization as you proceed forward. Leadership development focuses on developing the necessary individual abilities and attitudes to be a leader. The success of a leadership development program is linked to individual learner characteristics, the quality and nature of the leadership development program, as well as the genuine support for behavioral change from the leader supervisor. Management development is the process by which managers learn and improve their management skills. This is important because management effectiveness is recognized as a determinant of organizational success. For a variety of reasons, leadership and management are not the same thing. For example, leaders have power through their influence and their charisma, while managers, on the other hand, hold power over others through formal authority and position. In addition, leaders focus on people and have a long-term view, while managers focus on structure and short-term results. Leaders are original, while managers imitate. In today's world, leadership and management go hand in hand, and they complement one another. It's important for managers today to also possess leadership qualities instead of only management qualities, because employees look to their managers to not only assign them a task, but to define their purpose as well. Managers no longer must only organize workers and maximize efficiency, but they also must help to nurture skill sets, develop talent, and inspire results. The task is no longer to just manage people, but is also to lead them.
Now let's discuss the options for how to approach this development. The first approach you can take in regards to the development program is the art perspective, which is based on creating waves, basically seeing the future and executing the plan. It requires discovery of self-awareness, self-knowledge, expansion of perception, self-mastery, and expressing unique vision voice. With the perspective leaders, develop creative cultures. They work with kinship and allow the employees to have space and opportunities for expressing their leadership voice and realizing their potentials. They also encourage learning and education as an ongoing process. When using assessments, they invite inquiries and questions and evaluate quality of attributes within the team members, not as a diagnosis tool or categorizing and defining employees. Also, they are honest with their employees and have them pursue a vision and same time give them guidance only when needed. Leaders empower employees in harnessing their aspirations. They provide coaching and mentoring, basically playing an active role in creating the leaders. Finally, they cross boundaries, barriers, and are always willing and flexible to change. So Dan, can you share with us the advantages and disadvantages of art approach?
Some of the advantages of approaching leadership development as an art are that your end result will be individuals that are able to express themselves more freely, and consequently, these individuals will be able to function well in a culture that is constantly changing. The major disadvantage to this approach is that the development may be too abstract and complex. Thus, if you develop someone successfully with this approach, it will be likely that you can't duplicate your result since it is so hard to measure precisely what elements are contributing to the individual's success. Now Nagam is going to go over the second option.
Thank you, Dan. The second approach you can take in regards to the development program is the science approach. Managers approaching the science concept require training and teaching employees to master competencies related to the task at hand. They maintain reliability and repeatability of skills, behaviors, and abilities. During selection process, they use assessments for pre-screening and diagnosis. They ride waves that have been created by the leaders. HR practices are implemented to sustain control, predictability, and reliability. Basically, this concept includes the mentality of fixing and solving the problem. They judge team by output, profits, and they are results-oriented. With this mentality, regulations and/or procedures are a priority. So then, what about the advantages and disadvantages of the science approach?
The major advantage to approaching leadership development as a science is that it achieves a clear, structured, and reliable process. This method is perceived as being the safest because it is the best approach to maintain control, predictability, and reliability. Some of the disadvantages with this approach are that it is very limited and bound by the current paradigm that an organization may have. In environments that are constantly changing, this approach will have difficulty keeping up and being sustainable. Now at this point you may be wondering, well, these sound like two completely different approaches. Which should we use? Our recommendation is generally to use an integrated perspective where one keeps both of these in mind and draws from each as the situation calls. With that being said, situation is an important factor to consider. It's great that you want to develop mid-level managers into leaders. However, I recommend allocating your resources wisely rather than developing all your mid-level managers. Upper management must determine in which area of the company leaders would be valuable, perhaps with a specific product line, perhaps with a specific marketing group, or perhaps a specific geographical region of the company. You must assess the business situation in addition to assessing the individuals. To elaborate some more on individual assessments, Thomas Kilmann and the DISC are good ways to determine individuals' conflict styles, and the Myers-Briggs will add valuable information to your developmental program as well. But I recommend assessing consecutive managers along certain information pipelines rather than just one specific candidate. This, in addition to a 360-degree feedback of potential candidates, will paint a picture in determining the type of situation and possible barriers that the mid-level managers may face when developing into more of a leadership role. Finally, it is important to trust your group of employees and to recognize each other's strengths, weaknesses, and tendencies. By using more of a collaborative approach, the organization will be able to utilize its human resource. Now David is going to give some more in-depth analysis.
As part of our recommended strategy, we will implement ideas from leaders in our field. The first area we will discuss is authentic leadership. Some of the main ideas are as follows. Leadership emerges from personal experiences. Every person has certain defining experiences in their lives that define not only their personalities, but also the belief window through which we see and interact with the world. The next idea is reframe these stories to understand the self at the core. We will understand more about this with the next items that follow, which are recognize that you don't have to be born with certain characteristics in order to be a leader. It is something that can be developed as this leadership style suggests. The next item is rather than seeing themselves as victims, authentic leaders use these formative experiences to give meaning to their lives. They reframe these events to rise above their challenges and to discover their passion to lead. Next is discovering your authentic leadership requires a commitment to developing yourself. It's important to always continue to improve your weaknesses, to work on the things that you need to, not only weekly but also daily in order to achieve these, which goes hand in hand with the next item, which is in order to sustain success, take time for self-exploration. We also utilize ideas about storytelling to improve your management style. There are 5 key components of storytelling. Number 1, stories are context specific. Number 2, they are level appropriate. Number 3, they are told by respected role models. Number 4, they have drama. And number 5, they have high learning value. These points have a strong connection to authentic leadership as well. Authentic leaders know where they come from and use their own story to cultivate success in others. They use all their life experiences as learning tools. Now, implementing a plan using these themes can include the following. Getting the top team actively engaged. It is important to get every member of the top team engaged in order to create buy-in from the rest of the employees. Next is develop a collective point of view on leadership effectiveness. When the whole team agrees on the direction to go, it creates more unity moving forward. Next is consider all available alternatives. Recognize that telling a story isn't always the best way to teach or inspire. Next is get the right team in place to carry out the programs. This is making sure that there's a variety of perspectives on the team and make sure that the most enthusiastic person is the leader. And last is to use stories to stimulate dialogue, reflection, and action. Do not use stories as speeches, but as catalysts for discussion. A facilitated dialogue should follow in which everybody participates in discussing the leadership challenges raised in the discussion. We also utilize ideas about storytelling to improve your management style. There are 5 key components of storytelling. Number 1, stories are context specific. Number 2, they are level appropriate. Number 3, they are told by respected role models. Number 4, they have drama. And number 5, they have high learning value. These points have a strong connection to authentic leadership as well. Authentic leaders know where they come from and use their own story to cultivate success in others. They use all their life experiences as learning tools. Now, implementing a plan using these themes can include the following. Getting the top team actively engaged. It is important to get every member of the top team engaged in order to create buy-in from the rest of the employees. Next is develop a collective point of view on leadership effectiveness. When the whole team agrees on the direction to go, it creates more unity moving forward. Next is consider all available alternatives. Recognize that telling a story isn't always the best way to teach or inspire. Next is get the right team in place to carry out the programs. This is making sure that there's a variety of perspectives on the team and make sure that the most enthusiastic person is the leader. And last is to use stories to stimulate dialogue, reflection, and action. Do not use stories as speeches, but as catalysts for discussion. A facilitated dialogue should follow in which everybody participates in discussing the leadership challenges raised in the discussion. So far, there are 3 things that need to be considered. Number 1, realize that you are working with human beings and not machines. Number 2 is the integration of art and science. And number 3 is failure is a part of success. And right now we'll discuss a few suggestions on dealing with failure. First of all, there are 3 main types. Number 1 is preventable. This is error due to deviance, inattention, or lack of ability. The second is unavoidable, which is failure due to uncertainty of work. Examples of this are triaging patients in a hospital emergency room, responding to enemy actions on a battlefield, and running a fast-growing startup company. In other words, situations that occur in unpredictable situations. The third type of failure is intelligent. This is failure that occurs when experimentation is necessary, when answers are not knowable in advance because this exact situation hasn't been encountered before. Other important aspects to consider are, number 1, getting an organization to accept failure takes leadership. Number 2 is only leaders can create and reinforce a culture that counteracts the blame game and makes people feel both comfortable with and responsible for learning from failures. So I feel that this ties into authentic leadership. Authentic leaders will create this culture and try to learn from mistakes rather than punishing them. Every mistake should be viewed as a learning opportunity. Now consider what we've talked about, and remember that at the end of the day, we are all people with different needs and perspectives. What we have recommended should be taken into serious consideration, knowing that what works for one person or organization may not work for another person or organization. Now, you've heard a lot today about leadership development, and I'm sure that many of you see how development is a long journey. We hope that you enjoyed our presentation and that all your leaders soar into the horizon.